I was going to really just have Jill and Rachel open up with any updates anyone needs to do. And then also, I know they talked about agenda for today. So I know you all are going to do your letter exchange. So I know they're going to do that. And then after you do that, it's my understanding y'all decided to go ahead and try to bring forward all the issue statements that you all have been working on. And so tonight, I'm hoping that we can unpack each issue statement just enough to get an overview. So, someone say their issue statement, give us a very quick overview. We don't have to go the 5-step on it, right? And then we'll start seeing, how many issue statements have been brought forward for this year. And you may want to start, seeing where are there ones that are related that we're going to want to tie together, or at least deal with, within the same week, if you will. Also, when we go through issue statements, keep your eye out for issues that come forward that you all know you're going to need to get some data on. And then also, you may have duplicate, I do not know, issue statements. And if so, then we sort of tie them together. And then I think Rachel and Jill both said that by the end of the night, it would be nice if you all can look at that, what all's on your plate in terms of the issue statements. And then look at, so what do you want to tackle first? Like what's really a priority? What do you have information to tackle? And then you'll start building your agendas for your next meetings from there. Does that sound right?
Yes.
Make sense? Okay. Rachel and Jill, this is your meeting.
I was just going to I started meeting notes in the folder just for Rachel and anybody else.
Lindsay, we missed you last time. Good to have you
I
back.
missed you guys too.
Hey, Stephanie, can you let me in the meeting, please?
Ah, Michelle, look, I'm saying we're waiting on Michelle, and there you are. Sorry. There you go. Okay.
So it doesn't matter to me who goes first. I think the plan was Jill and I pinged Jill earlier this week because we have such a big team now, and so I thought it might be better just to share these electronically instead of printing 10 copies of multiple pieces of paper. But certainly if anybody needs to take notes on paper, that's how they work best. We can take a pause and people can print them if they want hard copies, but I didn't bring any with me because I just kept them in a folder all last year and I didn't really look at them. So, but if anybody says, stop, I need a print, that's how I think best, then we can absolutely do that. Obviously we have tons of printers here, so just let me know if you want to do that. I also know Jill and I were both talking beforehand, and I looked back at how I did our issue statements last year. Having gone through this for a year, I was like, gosh, I don't think I did those exactly right. And I tried to really look at the prompts on the issue statements. But I think that we can be, I'm comfortable with us just being conversational. I don't need to talk at the team the whole time as I'm introducing my statement. So if there are questions or what does this mean, or how does that tie to your notice letter, or totally happy to be conversational. Don't feel like you're interrupting at all. Because I guess the purpose of today will just be to really understand what the problem is, or the perceived problem that's identified in the statement. So I tried, it was difficult for me, I try not to be positional anyway or solution oriented, although when you're identifying a problem, it's sort of there. So I would just say if it feels that way as we're going through them, I know we've committed to being open to all sorts of solutions and thinking out of the box. So I think last year there was a lot of anxiety for everyone when we were reading the statements, gosh, we're going to disappoint the party we represent if that's what's on the table, or that's the solution that's being looked for. And I hope we don't have that this year, because we have a year of trust behind us and understanding that we could land in so many different spots really as we go through this. And none of these issue statements are an ask. We're not asking for anything right now. We're just saying this has been an issue that we've experienced. Can we talk about it? So hopefully there's a little bit of less anxiety, or just that's going to be a tough one that we have to get through this year, or whatever. But yeah, hopefully we can be conversational, and it doesn't matter to me who goes first. We went first last year, so I don't know if you want to go first this year.
Yeah, do you want me to You know, Stephanie, I haven't sent this to you, but I could share my screen so we're all looking at it. I'm going to put it in
Yeah.
our shared folder first. We have a folder within a folder. I love folders within folders.
Yeah, I think screen share would be great.
Okay.
So also remind me, what was you all's numbering system? Did we number as we go, or did you guys pre-number your stuff?
I pre-numbered, or we pre-numbered.
Okay,
We did too.
so it was like NEA number 1, 2, 3, whatever, and then
Yeah.
And I
Okay.
tried to order ours in our sort of priority and things that we felt like would be important for ratifiable agreement, like we discussed last time. But obviously, if things are grouped because it makes sense or whatever, but generally, that's how we did ours.
And are you thinking we're going to just start with our issue statements rather than, or do you want me to bring up the?
yeah, I know you all were going to do
Letter?
you've got to sort of check the box on your letter exchange. So however you all want to do that.
I mean, I just
and
put
then
ours, I just shared ours into our folder, so is that an exchanging?
Just in case.
Oh, and we have a paper one too.
Yeah, no, I think that, mandatory items, okay, I think that we can just read through. It's up to you if you want to review your notice letter, but,
I say just
I think maybe
read
if-
through it real quick,
Okay, sure.
and then we can go into what's actually,
Yeah, what it actually is. Okay, let me open it and then get my ring thing going. Share. Doesn't like my desktop. Hold on.
has she given you permission?
I don't know.
No, I shouldn't have to.
Okay,
In Ring Central, my setting is where any participant can share, as long as somebody else isn't sharing at the same time.
I need to open my system preferences, hit security and privacy, and grant access. So my computer's like,
Yeah, the only setting I have is only one person can share at a time.
there we go.
Um,
I'm
okay.
granting it. Oh. So I have to quit Ring Central meetings first,
Do you want me to just try to
and then
share
redo it? When I grant access, I had to leave the Ring meeting and then come back. But yes, you can go ahead and share it, and I'll start reading.
Okay.
That's fun. So I have
Who's
do
going to try to share? I hope you
I
can
will.
share.
Lindsay will.
Okay. There it is.
You're gonna
Yeah,
have to
the
let me
folks I
back
had
in
on
again.
last night were able to share from here. All right, I see it.
that. All right. But you are going to have to let me back in once I put my name in here.
Sure will.
Okay. Okay.
We do it just to be, can we explain maybe, Rachel, Abby was asking, is the letter exchange process different than in the past? And so, as part of the P&A process, I think we came to the agreement, last year we just gave each other notice letters and we never responded to them, and this year we just agreed to bring them forward. And I think after having a year into this process, I know our team really tried to work to not put it in kind of with ideas of what we wanted the end product to look like.
Right.
We may not be
Not
doing great
solutions.
yet, but we tried.
Yeah.
So it is a little different because it never used to be, the old process, we never really opened and read the letters.
Would you guys actually like go to dinner?
Yeah, we used to go to dinner, the superintendent with Nancy Fritz or Cheryl Siegel.
Yeah. So, yeah, the first one, the mandatory item is compensation, including salary, wages. So there's 3 bullets on there: increase the dollar amount in the cells, add positions to the supplementary salary schedule, and utilization of ESSER funds. For hours and amounts of work, we wanted to put the article and the section. So there's one about number of classes taught per day, counselor workload, guidelines for part-time employees. And then another part where it says professional categories for contract extension, number of preps, sped workload.
Lindsay, can you
Thank you. And modify the use and number of staff meetings. That's similar to previous. What?
You told me to make it bigger, so I made it bigger.
Oh, looks good. Why, because I can't see it? No, I can see it. Let's go up a little bit. That's what I call it, going up. Sorry, going down. Anyway. I go like this to go. And then these are the 3 additional. Association seeks to increase the employer's contribution to the professional employees' health care or health insurance premium. The association seeks to ensure professional employees receive quality and applicable professional development, and the association seeks to discuss class size guidelines. And then we've asked, I mean, we did this before where we asked for like certain data, so that's kind of the bottom part. Things that we like always ask for. So, the name and the FTE salary step column of all of our employees. Superintendent's report. This one we asked for last year, asking again the number of bargaining unit members who participate in the health insurance program, and then how many participate within each plan. Most current enrollment number per class for in-person and remote classes at all levels. From our discussions last year, the staff meeting and PD survey, we were giving out surveys if we had PD during a staff meeting. And then the CARES Act money utilization to date. So that's it.
I'm going to reserve I have some questions, but I think they might be answered by the issue statements.
Yeah.
So I think it'd be better to go through those, and then again, I think it can be conversational, so.
Sure.
But I think there's going to be a lot of explanation in there, so.
Your turn.
Oh, do you want me to go through our notice letter now?
Oh,
instead
well,
of
I don't know.
finishing?
Did you want me to then do all the issues? Do our issue
Yeah,
statements?
I think
Okay.
it makes
Make more
sense to
sense to
just
do
go
that.
through
Okay,
one
you're
party
right. Yep.
together.
Okay. It always makes it really large. And now I should be able to share too.
What, I can screen?
I'm gonna put them. I
Put 'em
need.
in
I.
a
You know what I
folder
need?
in that same place.
I know. I need my second screen. I do not like not having my second screen. All right. Whoops. And it should let you go from one Google Drive to a different one. Okay, we'll figure this out.
If you share that drive with the other personality you have, it will work.
I mean, everything's in our
I know.
yeah. So the other
But if
personality.
you'd have to share it with your school.
Self, I have to share it with myself. That's fun. Okay, but I can go ahead and pull it up too, so.
You should be able to drag it from one.
I
Do you have it saved? Do you have your Google Drive backup on your computer?
yes.
And then just grab it from your Finder and drop it into the window.
I have my school Google Drive backed up to my computer.
Oh, you don't have both?
No.
No.
That's okay, I can share it with myself.
I can do it.
Oh, great, you do it, while I just put it up. How about that? You can figure that part out. You. I can't speak.
I can do.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Oh, no, I can. I got it here. I finally gave myself permission, so. All right. Issue number 1.
Where did you save that?
Well, I haven't, he's working on it.
Okay, okay, got it. So we're just
He's
looking at
working
the
on
screen.
moving it
You
over.
just said that you had it. Okay. I'll do
Oh,
it.
no, I said you go ahead and you move them over into our shared folder while I share on the screen.
Okay.
2 different words, 2 different shares. So here it is on our screen. Issue statement number 1, economic wages, benefits, or direct costs. We titled this compensation. We put the articles 12C2, 12A and B. Professional employee work schedule certified compensation. So our issue statement is, how do we ensure that our certified staff are adequately compensated for their contract and supplemental work? Is that a good question, Stephanie, without a solution? Make
Muted.
it larger.
I think it is.
Stephanie is muted. Oh.
I guess I could have just given you a thumbs up. I think it sounds fine.
Okay. So, we were supposed to.
Is this,
Go ahead.
is this NEA number 1?
Yeah, so NEASM number 1.
Okay.
And we started filling in the issue focus. Was that also, right?
Yeah, that's right. Oh, yeah, that's right. As
Okay.
far as your group feels like they can go.
Okay.
Right? So that gives you some bullets to help the team focus as you guys start to, IBB it. And it's also okay to fill out interest, even if it's just notes for you to remember what interests were coming up for you when you guys created the issue statement.
Okay,
But now, in terms of we have till 5, I would say let's not do the focus unless you feel like the focus is going to help explain your letter, right? In other words, I just want to get all the issue statements
Okay.
on the table, make sure that it is phrased properly, connect the related ones, figure out where there's duplicates, so you know sort of what you've got. And I'm afraid if we go into the issue focus on each item, if you guys have many, both sides have many, I don't know that you get them all out
Okay.
before 5. What do you all think about that? If you're really sort of wanting a little more info, does it make sense for Jill to tick through the issue focus bullet points? And we'll just have to be real disciplined about not taking it further, or it'll start kind of eating up time, is what I'm thinking, right?
I think as a general, most of these aren't going to have a whole lot of questions on them. And the ones that do, we can pause and take a minute on.
Okay. Everybody good with that? Sounds good to me.
So this is your issue statement on the topic of compensation? Okay.
right.
And
yeah.
we'll have one too.
And I think we
Right.
tried to, as we were numbering, like, one tied with the, like, as you go down the notice letter, they're pretty much tied
In order.
in order,
Okay.
Mhm.
just so that they could be matched up
Gotcha.
easily.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, then let me open the second one. All right, and I can make the view a little bit better. So this is issue statement number 2, a remodel. We're titling it work-life balance. So the professional employee schedule and the professional day. How do we address teacher burnout and create a better work-life balance? Question mark.
Guys, if I don't have an issue with the
Okay.
issue statement, I'm not going to say anything.
And this-
Remember, what
this
we're
is-
looking for in the issue statement is making sure that it is truly, you are really identifying the problem, not a symptom.
Okay.
Making sure that the issue statement doesn't embed positions or solutions. So, and this looks like a fine issue statement to me. And anybody else who's kind of questioning it, it's okay too. If you're wondering about it, jump in, or if you feel like the issue statement maybe is not nailing it, it's okay to say.
And this is the hours and amounts of work.
It is, it's under that, yeah.
Yeah,
12A
okay.
and B,
Gotcha.
but I think there's also a 12A or a 12C.
Okay.
Okay, so then. Well, actually, no, I think it almost covers all of the hours and that's work. Statement 3. Says.
And as a reminder, I love how you thought about what are all the articles related to this issue. Truth is, like you all did last year, and that happens sometimes, some of the solutions you come up with once you work that issue statement may not necessarily be contractual, or may be other articles that you didn't realize until you had a solution. So
Right.
there's some
Statement 3 is-
flexibility on those article numbers.
We highlighted discussion. Staff meetings is the title. How do we make staff meetings more relevant/effective?
Hey, haven't I seen this before?
Yes, and so if you look at the focus, we say that it was an issue statement from last year. What did the results of the survey say about the effectiveness of a staff meeting? So it's kind of a
Just a continuation.
Yeah, continuation.
Continuation. Okay. It'll be good to have you all's really comprehensive notes when you pick that one up from last time, because you really did unpack a lot of it last time.
Right. Yep. Number 4 is health insurance. Board's contribution to health insurance, Article 10A and B. How do we maintain affordable health care?
If only we could solve that. And we have, are we gonna have, do we have any idea of the timeline for, just because I'm thinking when we get down the road to ordering these,
Linda,
although.
yep. Sorry, Lynn and I have exchanged some emails, and we've contacted CBIZ, and we're in the process of setting up some meetings this spring.
Okay,
I think the hard thing is with the pandemic, they like to wait to give us as long as possible before they set the rates. But we haven't had a meeting since early fall, late summer, early fall, so we don't even have any idea what our trends are. But they'll have an idea. CBIZ will be able to tell us where we are trending, and then they'll try to push Blue Cross and Blue Shield, to wait as long as possible so that we can get the rate as low as possible.
All right.
Hopefully, we'll have some sort of idea, April, May, but I think last year it was June or July before they actually set the rate, but the rate did not differ a whole lot from when we had our meeting in late spring.
okay. Thank you.
We'll be hopeful to report something out in the next couple meetings to this team, kind of on the status at least.
And Rachel, just to clarify, I think you're asking for the folks that are new to the team, that it felt as though we were bumping up against the benefits committee was on sort of one track timeline, and this team, wanted information in order to make some decisions around healthcare. So as close as we can be to, knowing that you pick up healthcare as a group when you have information. Will be good. But you guys kind of flew a little bit blind last time, and it worked out. So I think that's why you're asking, Rachel, just to make sure that when you get to that point that you know all that you could know as a committee.
Yeah, thanks for being proactive.
So then, issue statement number 5 is discussion, professional development. I guess we didn't, discussion. How do we guarantee quality professional development that meets the needs of the staff and students? Again, it's, you probably heard it last year, so, yeah.
But on this one, we didn't go as far on this one last year, did we?
Great.
Yeah.
Well, it was one that we kind of pushed down.
So can I ask
Right.
Yeah,
a question
Go
as a
ahead.
reminder? If we mark discussion, we're agreeing that that's discussion, right? It's not we wouldn't go potentially to,
I think we're just clarifying that the IBB process is going to be used just the same, and I think the format for the discussion will look similar.
Rachel, a little louder. You may be away from your
I
mic.
think that with our procedure document that we have, we're saying we're going to use the IBB process, and our discussion is going to follow the IBB process, whether it's discussion or whether it's a noticed item that falls under the mandatory topics or the terms and conditions. However, we maybe have a better understanding underlying that it's, just not something that is likely to be a negotiated item to fall under the act.
But we don't want to pigeon in if we come up to some great grand thing at the end that does result in language, then we go that way. But
Lots of times too, like this particular issue, we did extensive surveying of all bargaining unit members. And so there were issues that came out that don't necessarily tie to language. It's not something that can be fixed by language, but we had such great data and content, and knowing that we have a new person in the position of a professional development director, I think it's a discussion that might lead to,
framework.
well, whoever's going to, be really nice to maybe start with that when you're starting a job, that how you're going to do follow-up surveys or such. So it's a way for us to bring the concerns of different different subgroups in our bargaining unit in a form that everybody can hear.
Yeah, and so we, like she said, we did survey the entire bargaining unit, and we got, I think, about 1,350 responses out of our, 2,000 plus teachers. So we split that up, and that's, what she's talking about.
And that's like their concerns or their
Yep.
issues as they saw.
We had a lot to read.
Yeah, and I think,
But-
I think, I don't know, it sets the table so that hopefully we don't have a misunderstanding. Like, if we're talking about a change to the contract day, we know what we're talking about. That's a P&A issue, and that's a focus, and we need to have that resolved before we're gonna have anything that can be ratified.
Right.
Correct.
But obviously, the goal is to still come up with a solution if it's a discussion topic.
Right.
So,
Yep.
but it has technical implications under the act. So I think it's really helpful that we have the freedom to mark things as discussion topics so that this team can discuss them
Yeah.
and come up with solutions. I like having that freedom.
Yeah, I'm, like we said, I'm not sure we could resolve this whole issue just in our limited time together. And obviously, it has been a priority of the district because the board chose to create this position, and so that's why we thought it would be a good place, though, to share those concerns here at the table. And ideas. They're not all necessarily concerns.
Right. Our issue statement number 6, we highlighted as discussion. And we said class sizes as a discussion. Where is that? How do we ensure our students get adequate individualized learning? So,
Where does the phrase come from? Adequate individualized learning? Is it part of a mandate, a strategic plan, a goal,
well, we kind of came up with it, but the individualized learning plan is definitely from our strategic plan.
Okay. I'm just curious.
Okay. And then,
If anybody else has questions, jump in too. Real quick, Lindsay, before I forget, I know you're note taking. In my written notes, I am trying to capture when someone says there's data related to an issue statement. So in NEA number 3, I wrote that there was survey data related to
Yeah.
staff meetings. And then in NEA number 5, I wrote that there was survey data so that when we go to say what night you're going to deal with NEA 3 or 5, we have a note saying, hey, what about that data? So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to back up, but I wanted to say that while I was thinking.
I would say
So-
there's data also attached to number 1.
Oh, yeah,
It's just a little.
just a little bit.
well, and then part of
Okay.
number 6, we were
Actually,
requesting.
all of our issue statements really came from the survey of our members, so
Yeah.
it's the same survey, it's not different ones, but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, Jill, I'm sorry. I
Oh, no, you're
derailed us
fine.
on number 6. You wanted to go back?
The last one we have is, it was under our compensation in our notice letter. We ended up making it a separate issue statement. Hold on, let me, sorry. I don't like.
By the way, was NEA 6, was it titled remodel or discussion?
Discussion, number 6 was discussion, yeah. How can we support Shawnee Mission staff by providing additional compensation for the difficult circumstances of the current school year? Is that a solution?
What do people think? That's a good
Can
question.
you scroll?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we probably do need to have a discussion about this one, because I definitely understand it, but I think that there's I know that there's a team that is doing that work. So I'm just thinking about the interplay between the team, and I can't remember, Dr. Hubbard or Dr. Schumacher are going to have to enlighten me about the team doing that work. And that's obviously a budget matter too. So just, I totally understand this issue statement, and it's definitely something we anticipated. I just think,
Yeah,
yeah.
I would love this issue statement as a discussion, similar to what we did last summer with, reopening and CARES, or I guess CARES wasn't there, but anything related to COVID. But
But
budgetary.
that's not a discussionary, that's a mandatory of the.
Budget isn't mandatory.
Huh?
Budget isn't mandatory.
No, salary.
Compensation would be though.
Yeah, but
Compensation is.
ESSER is budget, it's not. And those are specific.
Right, so I don't want to set us up for, I mean, we can't negotiate expenditure of ESSER funds, but I understand the ask here. I'm just concerned about jumping in front of that. Like, can someone share what the committee is first?
We have a elementary and middle and high committee being formed right now. Principals were charged with working through their BLTs to get volunteers to sit on these committees, similar to the reopening plan. So each level will have a committee. Those names were actually due yesterday. They spent a large part of today putting those teams together. And the charge is more about not how to spend, well, I guess it's kind of twofold here, but the charge is about how to support kids in learning loss. So we have, right now, we would have DIBELS data, we would have MAP data, we would have ACT data, we would have grades from first semester, we would have attendance from both the spring and, well, we may not have attendance from the spring, we didn't take attendance, did we? But we would have attendance from first semester of this year data. So looking at all of that data, we know we have significant gaps, especially in the area of mathematics and potentially in the area of social emotional learning. ELA, not quite as significant, but the math data, not just locally, but on a state level and nationally, we have significant math loss in the district. And so these teams are charged with looking at that data and coming up with a plan on how we support kids for the learning loss. Now, it might mean compensation for teachers in other sorts of ways, after school, summer programming, that would be compensation available if you're supporting those kids, if that's what the teams come up with. The one thing that we have to remember is it's one-time money. And so if we add staff, which they may choose to do, we would just have to know that that staff will go away. So, I mean, if we put, I'm just going to make something up, if we put an extra social worker in, or we put an extra counselor in, we would have to know that at the end of the 2 years, that position would have to go away, because it's soft money that could not be reoccurring. And so we are going to really coach those teams on the addition of people. They may land there, but it'll be a tough conversation in the end, because it's always hard to take away something buildings have, right? I mean, if you add an additional math specialist to everybody, and 2 years from now, you're like, sorry, that's got to come back. We all know that's a difficult place to be. So, but those committees are going to start to work, and we're giving a report to the board in April on the recommendation of the use of the ESSER funds.
How are those committees, because I know it's kind of voluntary, is it like pull out, is it extra time? Do we have
When are they meeting? I believe they'll be meeting either after schools. I don't believe we've set the meetings, but they will be paid for non-student time per the negotiated agreement. So I'm assuming it'll all be after hours, or mostly. But they will be paid.
Clear.
Yeah, they will be paid.
Okay.
What's the composition of those teams? I'm sorry, can you remind me again?
It's a large so counselors, social workers, we really asked for some very specific math because of the data that we have right now. And ELA, we have ELL on there, special education on there, instructional coach, administrators. What did I miss?
Okay.
Couple specialist teachers.
SPED, ELL.
Yeah, special education. So it's
Innovations,
very similar to the
interventionists.
reopening. We tried to really find a balance for those three levels. Also, feeder patterns, right? I mean,
Okay.
we probably won't touch every single school. We would touch, well, we might touch every single school, but we would definitely touch every feeder pattern.
So I guess a thought that we had was, as this team is working and coming up with creative solutions that might entail compensation for, let's say there's going to be 0 hours, or I'm just making something up, I have no idea what this is, but I guess our thought was, how does that compensation align with what's currently in the negotiated agreement, and are you mindful of that? Like, we wouldn't create something where somebody's earning an hourly rate that's double what anybody else is currently getting by the contract.
No, I think the intent would be that, let's say it's after-school programming. We would pay it just like we would pay after-school tutoring, so it would pay per the agreement. If it were summer programming, we would pay as we pay currently for summer programming. So that's what our thinking that's what my thinking is. I don't know that we wouldn't necessarily discuss it, but I know when they asked me the question about pay, I said, my response was, we will follow the agreement. If it's non-student, we'll use that hourly rate. If it's student, we'll use the hourly rate there. So that's how I responded to the question. I guess summer would be maybe the one that,
Like with the reopening groups that you guys did, I know that there was some intention to make sure that we have people who are NEA members on those groups. Was that part of kind of the planning of the composition of those groups?
I do not know the answer of that. I don't know the answer of that. And honestly, I apologize because since I've been out for the last 3 weeks, as we've had those conversations, I just haven't been in the room. I can ask the question, Abby.
I was going to say, I can only speak to my building. That was not something we considered from our leadership team considered. Just wasn't on it.
We just asked for volunteers.
And I'll say at my building, there was confusion about it being a paid position also, and some people were hesitant to volunteer because of that.
We had the question early on about whether it was paid or not, and we did answer that really early out of the chute. But long before names were due. So principals were charged with communicating that it was to be paid.
I'd have to believe that just statistically, out of that list, there's got to be some NEA members.
Right. I'm sure there will be too, because there's also a lot of NEA members on BLTs.
Yeah.
So then how can we meet, the issue statement makes complete sense to me. How can we meet then the focus? Because those are the groups that are, I guess, obviously when we get to the compensation discussion, that's data we can provide. What are your thoughts then on how we tackle this issue statement that you've brought forward? Because I think this would be part of the compensation discussion, absolutely, when we get to that point.
Let me jump in before you get too far with that, Rachel. I'm identifying that it sounds as though the committee around supporting kids in learning loss is going to take a look at the ESSER funds, and then there's going to be a recommendation in April to the board on how those funds should be used. Okay, so that sounds like one issue. It sounds like it may be something, while I hear Mike saying, look, how we use ESSER is not a mandatory subject of bargaining. And then I hear the association saying, but if it goes towards compensation, let's talk about it, right? Because compensation is, right? But you guys don't know that yet because of this committee. Separate from that, this issue statement, Jill was on when she first said, oh, maybe it sounds like there's a solution embedded in my issue statement. Does anybody else see that, and what the real issue statement, what the real issue here is that maybe you're trying to address, and so how the solution is embedded in that?
I think maybe we take out the by providing additional compensation. Well,
Right,
only because that sounds like
that's
that's the
fine.
solution. We want to support Shawnee Mission staff because they had difficult circumstances during this current school year, right?
Right, and if is it support, is that too broad in general, or are you looking to like, how do we reward, how do we recognize, how do we support Shawnee Mission staff or because of difficult circumstances the current school year, right? And then if you identified, okay, does everyone here have an interest in doing that, and why, right? Why are you trying to do it? What is it impacting? Why do you feel that you want to do that? Then if you move to brainstorming, oh, how might we do it? Just one idea would be, use ESSER funds for additional compensation. Another idea might be something else. Another idea might be something else. So I am going to say that I do agree. Jill has already, the issue statement has a solution in it. And it's going to be hard if you guys go down the road and then you're going to start getting traditional and just struggling over ESSER's money, right? When you're not giving yourself room to find additional ways to address your real issue is here. How do we either, reward, recognize, or support the staff? Does that make sense what I'm saying, guys? What do people think of that?
It makes sense, and I think you're going to be saying the same thing when I go through my issue statements. It's so difficult not to do that.
It is hard, yeah.
So
So this sounds like this issue statement would need editing.
Right.
And it sounds like Dr. Hubbard is maybe, Dr. Hubbard was always giving COVID updates last year. By the time April comes, maybe that's when you're going to be picking this up. Or before that perhaps. And then you're going to sort of know if giving compensation starts to surface as once you guys IBB this problem or this statement, if compensation starts to surface and you get some consensus around, that's how or one way we'd like to do this, accomplish this, then you're going to have to kind of line it up with, well, what did this committee decide? And perhaps you're going to have to line it up with decisions you make in your economics. Or you may end up coming up with other things that won't be related to money or money, but not ESSER money. So you just don't know yet, but I think that, if you edit the issue statement, it's something you guys will just pick up in IBB and then see where it goes.
Okay. Do we need to edit it now?
I think we can.
As long as someone has notes, you can do it.
I'm not sure I'm going to be able to edit mine in real time. So
Okay.
I'm just going to take good notes and edit mine to the extent the team decides we need any edits, and I'll re-put them back in the folder edited.
Okay. So I can stop
Okay.
sharing.
Okay, and then also, was there anything anyone still had questions on? I didn't want to cut anyone short on the questions around how the folks for that ESSER's team were selected. I think Linda's kind of said, well, she's assuming there's some NEA folks on that. Is the team members, I guess, eventually just get announced, or is that, did I shortcut the conversation on that, guys?
No, I think
Okay.
everybody understands the process.
When that committee's set, will those names be made public at all, or?
And I think that will be pretty quickly, early next week, probably, the latest.
Are those open meetings, or are those strategic plan little subcommittees work where I'm not asking for them to be open, I'm just asking, are they open? Do you know? Or will there be, will the board be updated? How will people know how the progress of that group is going?
Well, who formed it? Did the board form it?
No, it will not be an open meeting,
I
right?
think their strategic plan meeting, we'll have to follow up with you
Yeah.
with that answer, because I don't know the makeup of the group, and I don't know who the group reports to. As soon as I figure that out, we'll absolutely let you know. Or who
guys,
directed the formation of those groups. I don't know who directed the formation.
Yeah.
The only time you all really had a point where I thought, oh my gosh, Shawnee Mission did all this work. They're in IBB. They're just like rolling. The only time you guys had that big hiccup was really around a compensation decision that was made sort of separate from here. Concerns about there was discussion, but decisions weren't made here. And I'm not advocating that you do anything differently other than communicate with each other. Even if it's, hey, you're not going to be in the room and here's why. Or if it's, closed, or no, we didn't pick those folks and here's why. I don't think that we have to bring anything into this IBB session that is not IBB-able, right? But as long as there's communication, I think you guys will do good. Don't leave this meeting and then go talk separately about frustration that you have. If you have concerns or frustration,
To talk separately.
I would encourage people.
There may not be any issues. I just want to try to lead you guys to get out in front of it by, I think you got the ability to raise whatever, add it to an agenda item if you want to talk about it in terms of just
I know
communication and transparency.
They gave an update at Monday night's board meeting about this specifically and what they were looking at spending ESSER funds on. And I believe that the learning gap was there. Some ventilation in buildings was there to get everybody compatible to MERV filters, I believe, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And I would have to pull up the presentation for the rest, but they gave a presentation on this money specifically. Mike, do you remember? There were four, I think there were
Those
four
are two big
bullets.
ones. Darren also mentioned the math learning gap, that was going to be a big focus as well. Dr. Dennis, sorry.
Dr. Darren.
Dr. Darren.
Hi, if you're listening.
Sorry, Darren.
Did you say map or math?
I said map first, but I meant to say math.
Okay.
Math gap.
It's really kind of one and the same right
You
now.
know, I was just like, hold on, I just want to make
They're
sure.
almost synonymous.
Yeah, the map data,
Especially when you have to say math map.
Right.
yeah.
We should just say NWEA. Let's just say that.
Okay, so number 7, you guys are going to edit it offline and put it in the drive under the edited issue statement. Okay, did you have beyond number 7?
Nope.
Oh, lucky number 7.
What were you
Okay,
expecting, like
I was
20?
I was at the community college last night that it's not even anywhere near around here, by the way, it's the other side of the state. I was with the community college last night that it's their first IBB, and one team brought 31 and one team brought 18. So needless to say, we did not get through them in our
Wow.
first.
Those people don't
But
have
yeah.
summer plans.
Interesting. So, but a good thing is they had a lot of duplicates, which was good. So, and some were repairs. So, okay. So let's see. I think that it's Rachel. Did you want to present the ones for the district?
Sure. I don't think this will take too long, guys, because we have some overlap and some carryover from last year. And like I said, questions, just let me know. I put our notice letter in the folder, and it notices the 3 items that we would like to negotiate or have a discussion about this year, in addition to compensation and hours and amounts of work, as reviewing our grievance procedure for resolving concerns about violations of the P&A, a discussion about resignations, and then a discussion about personal day non-use dates. And then our issue statements explain those. So let me upload them right now. Mine's all in a single PDF. Okay. So ours, yours I think followed your notice letter, which makes sense. Ours are somewhat in priority order. I rewrote this from last year, although I think some of my interests may be solution oriented. But just in general, we'd like to have a discussion about our grievance process, discuss possibly remodeling it, mostly so that it is a more efficient and effective process, or to see if there are ways that can make it more efficient and effective. Pretty simply to see if we can move through, if we get to level where a grievance is filed, in a quicker fashion and get a resolution for the complainants quicker with less, less expenditure of money by both parties to get to a solution. So that's where that issue comes from, to see if we can just make it maybe a better resolution process. Number 2 is an issue that's been discussed before, although not in the IBB format. So, our thought maybe being that by going through IBB, we could maybe explain the interests of the district a little bit more and the difficulty that the district's experiencing when we have late resignations. And so our issue statement there is, our problem basically is that sometimes when we have late resignations, human resources cannot find a suitable replacement during the school year for that individual. And so we'd like to see if we can maybe tackle or look at the late resignation provision with our concern being the not having a good ability to find a replacement for that person when there's a mid-year or a late resignation. The last one, any questions before okay. The last one, and I feel like this is like our,
What?
oh.
Okay, I was muted. Okay, so on that, can you tell me, did you all write an issue statement in the form of a how we can on that? Number one, I think, is a carryover from last year, the grievance procedure, right? If I can just back up a minute, your number one was a carryover, but did you have the actual issue statement? Was it how can we improve, align, or what did you say about grievance procedure?
How can we, I'm going to try and make it as broad as possible and critique me here because it's so difficult for me not to look at like the inline, but how can we have an efficient and effective grievance process?
I just want to clarify, because this is your notice letter, and then do you have the grievance letter or the issue statements to go with it? So I think,
Do you want to share it on the screen?
well, no, I was
Oh.
just going to say, like, we just went through our notice letter, and I think Stephanie's jumping ahead.
No, she's
No,
going
this
through
is
issues.
Or
my
this-
issue statement.
She's going through the issues now.
Sorry.
Oh,
it
yeah,
was in the
not
folder.
screen
On the
sharing.
wrong
I just
page?
wanted to hear how the
No.
wording was,
Oh.
Rachel.
I'm sorry, I didn't direct very well.
And I
Okay.
missed a turn signal.
It's okay. So how did you word the, if we can just, how did you word the grievance procedure problem?
Not well in my issue statement, but I think more broadly, and let me know what the team thinks is how can we have an efficient and effective grievance procedure?
What do people think? Because you've not had a lot of discussion on grievance procedure. I think that would probably work. I would say this.
Rachel, I'm typing them in the notes just so that you
Without
don't have to
the
write and talk at
issue
the
being
same time.
focused yet, Rachel, are you all sure that the only problems are efficiency and effectiveness? Or are you just kind of using those phrases as catch-alls? Because if they're catch-alls, you can just say, how do we improve the grievance process? And then in your focus, it could be efficiency issues, it could be, right? So are you just kind of wanting to improve it, make it work better? I mean, you can go a little more general.
Work better would be I think that's kind of inartful, but
I agree, but it's not a,
we
it's
could
not
have differences
graceful,
of
but
opinion on whether it's working well right now, so I don't want to like make anyone accept that. But that's a phrase that I would use is how can we make it work best? Maybe would be
Yeah.
a better phrase. How can we make it work best in
that's
resolving?
that's just a little broader so that you don't totally like pre-zone in on efficiency and whatever else you said, only, right? Because you don't know until you start unpacking how's it going, right? What all's going to come up. So yeah. So how do you best use or improve or something like that? I don't know. Somebody that's got better words than Rachel and I, what do you think?
I like what you just said.
How can we
Create the best.
how can we create the best grievance procedure for, I don't know if we want to continue resolving concern, because that's what a grievance procedure is for. It's for resolving concerns that a P&A has been violated, misinterpreted, or misapplied.
I think just how can we improve the grievance procedure would be fairly simplified.
I'm fine with that too.
And that way you guys can go into any areas that you start to discover are lacking, not just sort of two areas.
I don't know
Okay,
if it
so
matters,
Sh-
but
Shawnee
I got
Mission-
kicked out.
I-
If you want to see my face, you can let me in. If you're good, it's fine.
By the way, I'm noting that one's a carryover because I really hate to see parties carry something over 3 cycles, right? It can be demoralizing. So for the purposes of prioritizing, it may not be your most important, but do note in your notes that was not gotten to last time. So, okay, and then Rachel, when you get to number 2.
Can I ask a question? Since we are still in the middle of the case that's referenced here, I'm not sure how we IBB that in the
So-
middle of that process.
My proposal would be that we not. that is its own thing, that this.
Because you alluded to it, that's why I brought it up.
That's just to me where it was identified, like the source of how it even came to our mind that maybe this was a problem. But my proposal would be that this is a going forward only, no matter what the solution is. Unless whatever, the parties mutually agree or something, but I don't see this necessarily as impacting that. It would be applicable if this team agreed to do anything with regard to that P&A language. It would be only applicable to grievances filed from the effective date of that P&A forward.
And is your thought in this just the grievance process? Because due process is also part of this whole grievance policy?
We'd have to, because I believe, and that's a good point, that due process procedures for termination are married into that, so that we would have to, whether this team did it as a whole or as a subcommittee, carefully keep that in mind. And I think we're not looking to change due process. That's not in our, to clarify, this is for grievances filed. If it makes sense to marry those to be the same process, and the team wants to do that, but we're not noticing the due process procedures for professional employees.
Just wanted
Yeah.
this little clarification, thank you.
Important clarification.
Yeah.
Rachel,
Okay.
we want to have, like, she talked about like some data, like data around why we're saying it's possibly an ineffective, I mean, like you referenced like costing money or time, like would that, like, I don't know, both parties would have like information that would be available to share around? What would effective be, you know what I mean? How would you define that?
Well, one thing we could gather is examples of others, see how other districts are doing it. I can explain why the lack of what I see as effective arbitrators options there are so limited, and I can share that information. Just the limited ability to find anyone decent that practices law in our state, and I can share that kind of stuff.
So, I just want to clarify with the process, when we would IBB this issue, we would like for Kevin Scarrow to be available if we needed him to come, because the grievance procedure is handled by KNEA staff and not by local leadership. That is not anything that that the president, for example, runs the show on that.
Sure.
As far as, I mean, where those funds come from, how time is allocated, which KNEA staff actually works that.
Sure.
And that is not, that would be secondhand information for me to deliver that.
I mean, I think it's likely that we could end up doing a subcommittee on this, because it would be really challenging in a group of 10 to talk about, and I would welcome him, if we get to a point where we agree that we should do that. Yeah.
So Lindsay, this is good for you to catch this info so that when we do pick this up, you've already got notes, Lindsay, you could read to us on, okay, what do we need to be thinking about if we put this on the agenda? But quick question, clarifying, Linda, would Kevin be coming sort of as kind of a SME? Like if you're going to be talking about changing grievance procedure, if he's the one and the associations, those staff are the ones that work with it, you want him as a subject matter expert on just coming to the table about, what makes sense and to give sort of his thoughts on how the process is working. Were you saying that you would need to have, like at times where Rachel said, look, I need to talk to the board, or would Kevin and NEA be subject matter experts, or are they folks that you need to kind of get okay on? I guess I want to just clarify that, and you don't.
I would not, I would not be able to speak on behalf of what our KNEA attorneys would do and recommend. And so, I think it would be similar to what Rachel would do when she goes back to the board. We would go back to our state association for that.
Okay.
It would be, in preparing for that, I think that it'd be helpful if the team members here are prepared to broadly talk about interests in a broad scope, And then if we have like a subject matter expert from KNE, do that in a subcommittee, but think about that and let me know if you think that will work, or talk to Kevin. Cause I think, the interests are not as technical.
Yeah, I'm not talking the interest part, I'm talking when
Yeah.
you're talking more subcommittee and we're looking at
Okay.
comparing what other contracts look like throughout the state and
Yeah.
such.
Got it.
Okay, and then on resignations, I'm going to move us to Shawnee mission number 2 was resignations. You sort of, I think when you were trying to focus it, you were specifically talking about late resignations. How would anyone maybe form that into an issue statement? A question, and how do we blank? What might you do with that?
I'm looking at Dr. Schumacher
looking
because
at it
it's a
too.
problem that his department has to work through.
Could you say something
Okay.
like, how can you minimize the impact on student learning from late resignations? Because I mean,
Good
you know, like,
suggestion.
that's what it comes down to, right? Is that like late resignations often have an impact on kids?
That I think would be totally acceptable for you guys to pick up, but just to kind of play around, and maybe we'll come back and use that as your issue statement. I wonder if I ask you, why are late resignations happening?
Now?
There's different
every-
ones.
Yeah, now?
Because some are
Yeah.
acceptable, some are, if it's a promotion, if you will, if it's an advancement, or if it tends to be the care of a, let's say, how am I trying to say that, ailing parent or child, that's kind of, I think what you're looking at here are people who just resign midstream.
Right.
Not necessarily, just maybe taking a job
I
someplace else.
found something better after I signed my contract.
Exactly, yeah.
I mean,
Those folks who are leaving our students to take a different job or something like that, and leaving us with trying to find.
could it be, how do we ensure open positions are filled? Or, positions are,
Yeah, I want to get there, but I think the real issue is the late resignation. I don't want to lose that piece
Yeah.
of it. It's late
I
resignations.
just, a question of like,
Yeah.
I don't, trying to think before I speak. It's new.
First
Not
time it's
a
ever
unique
happened.
SMSD issue? Is it something else that, like, the surrounding are having issues with too?
Well, this year, yeah, I think everyone is, right, because of COVID. I would tell you that my belief is we're one of the only ones who are as liberal as we've been with letting people out when waiving that penalty. I know a lot of districts are not letting people out. So I think this year's a little bit different. But in talking with our HR peers, I would share that the $1,000 does not disincentivize people from leaving. So it's a free-for-all, frankly. It really is.
So
And I
how-
would share that collecting $1,000 or anything in the range of $1,000, the collection costs, to make it worth the cost of collection, it would have to be multiplied astronomically.
Right.
But so since we're not moving towards solutions, but that does kind of narrow the point of where we're going, it's more how do we ensure that there's,
A qualified teacher
Qualified
in all of our classrooms
classrooms.
throughout the year, or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, perhaps, yeah. So this is where, you remember when
That's
in
the
training we
concern.
said sometimes if you feel like your issue statement, what I'm saying is I feel like your issue statement should really be a problem you want to solve, not how to Band-Aid a symptom of a problem, right? And maybe late resignations are a symptom of problems, right? And getting to the root of that problem, if you want to, requires us to do that, 5 whys, so why are late resignations happening, right? Then you're going to tell me why, and then I'll say, and why is that? And why is that, right? And then you're going to probably get down to some root problems that, are probably going to help with, retention, quite frankly. But it sounds as though Mike is saying, look, this needs an immediate dealing with. He's sort of thinking about, and I don't put words in your mouth, but like, is the penalty enough, right? Or, what are other districts doing, right? So again, it's like you're kind of like figuring out how to deal with the symptom of a bigger problem, and that's okay. So I just want to say this issue statement can be, however you worded it, it could be how to reduce late resignations. That's ultimately going to get you to some other issues, right? And one solution could be related to increased penalty, but then it'll open the door for you guys to get to the issues on, teachers that just feel like it's a free for all and they don't have a holding value to staying in the district. So I just want to let you guys decide where you go with it, because you may just want to take on the symptom right now, how to, hamper down those late resignations, but know that there is probably a bigger issue under it, I think. So, you all just take that for what it's worth, and I can go either way with it.
Yeah, I think I struggle with it being a retention issue. I don't think that's it. I think it's simply, in past years, the grass is greener. It's a different job. It's something like that. So I don't dislike the verbiage of how to ensure a highly qualified teachers in our classrooms throughout the course of the entire year, or something like that, in reference to late resignations.
I think consistency matters too. I mean, obviously it's impactful in student learning when, in the middle of a school year, you change your classroom teacher.
Right.
Anybody else? Everybody good with that? What other thoughts do people have on that? So that you can go ahead and capture the phrase you want to use for this issue statement now, so when you pick it up, you guys can jump right in. And I think I heard Mike say, how do we ensure, and I think sort of Lindsay started, how do we ensure highly qualified teachers in every classroom?
Throughout the course of the year.
Yeah.
Because I think it's important that as we impact this, we might eventually, we might get to that late penalty, but I also think there's other aspects of that we need to examine as to, are we assuming that's why people are leaving? Is that the reason for why, and how do we, get that data?
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay.
We'll certainly have to explore the range of reasons. I think the pressure point from administration standpoint is when someone does the grass is greener, or I didn't realize I signed a contract. I thought I could, those are the ones, it's, when someone has a personal situation, it's, understandable, but those are the ones that are really frustrating.
Well, and when you get to that issue, it doesn't just affect the students, it affects everyone in that building, because
On their team.
someone is
Exactly. Yeah.
someone is helping with that Band-Aid.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay. Good work, guys. Okay, Rachel, now you were going on to number 3, I think, personal
Okay,
days.
this is my buzzkill one. I know. So I'll start with the focus or the impetus why this has been an issue. And feel free to chime in, Dr. Schumacher, but the past 2 years have been an incredible challenge from administration standpoint. We've had certain major sports celebrations, parades, events, things like that, and just had a massive number of personal days roll in, absorbing a massive amount of administrative time, determining if we can adequately cover, how we're going to cover. This particular Super Bowl Monday, there was multiple meetings that we might have to cancel school because we might not have adequate coverage. That's what we're looking at, is how do we deal with high absences on those days when sports events or celebrations happen to fall. And if I'm trying to, I guess, how do we make sure if the broader statement I maybe propose, how do we ensure we have adequate staffing on days when major sports events fall?
That's where I was going to go. Similar to what we did with, go ahead, Scott, I'm sorry.
Do we really want to limit it to sports, though? It could be something else that occurs, that could be an event like sports.
It tends to be, it's.
Do you know of other days?
Because of the Royals and the Chiefs, but
Yeah,
I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Yeah, not this Super Bowl, but the last one.
Right.
We had 78 unfilled positions across the district, and they all came in, as you might suspect, from the end of the fourth quarter till the start of the next day. And so as we were tracking that this year, we were at climbing, and no one wanted the Chiefs to lose, but
Salt in our wounds.
We're just gonna say, thank goodness from
We-
a school opening position.
we were
they
able
did.
to have school on Monday.
But just to kind of cover, Dr. Sherman, if I'm hearing you right, just to cover, maybe just how do we ensure adequate staffing when major events? Just because there might be something else that comes along.
And I think something we're gonna have to tackle is the uncertainty of when those events might be, because nobody knows what the outcome, and if you do, tell me, because I'll play some bets, but
Right.
like, we don't know what the outcome is gonna be
But-
of certain things, so.
I also question on the flip side of that, of like, what were the students, you know? Because like there was a big population of teachers gone, but I also know there was going to be a giant population of the students also gone on those days for the same reasons.
So maybe to prep for that conversation, having not only teacher absence rates on those days, but student absent rates?
Yeah, I mean, we can have those,
Okay,
they
yeah.
don't, I think that student absence doesn't impact our obligation to have school in accordance with our calendar, but certainly
Well, it
if we're considering.
It does if you have a low enough dip that, I mean, doesn't that affect if we can count it anymore, or is that, am I off on that?
Not if it's available for all students, I believe.
Because I thought there was a time period and that if attendance was so low that you couldn't count that
Mis-
day.
Missouri is that way, but they're funded on daily attendance rate, but
There's an absentee related to illness for a certain percentage you have to close.
Okay, I
Yeah.
could have just been pulling that out of somewhere else then.
That's a health related, that's a health.
well, and there are some other implications in regards to days with large absences that are tracked through what is called YODA data in regards to chronic absenteeism. So, I mean, we don't like those days because it's a compliance standard with KSDE that we have to deal with. So obviously we don't like those days. I think it's hard, like Rachel said, it's hard to pinpoint it because the day after the World Series, I don't remember what day of the week that was, but the day after wasn't the issue. It was the parade day, right? So it is going to be really hard to pinpoint those days. But definitely last year after the Super Bowl, we were able to do it because you could, again, you have kids gone, so you can combine some classes and you cover it through teachers' plans and things like that. Well, during COVID, we weren't going to be able to combine classes due to our mitigation plan. So we were literally, we were talking down to the wire Sunday night, can we pull this off?
At halftime.
Yeah, literally. And so we were like, can we pull this off? And if not, do we just close specific buildings? And that may have had to happen. And so fortunately, we were able to pull it off. But I think a lot of buildings were, I think we were fortunate that the weather was really cold. And so our kids, we have a lot of kids in attendance. Was that because of the cold or because of the Super Bowl? Probably both, honestly. But hey, we pulled it off. But if the Chiefs would have won, we probably would not have been able to pull it off, just a guess, based on what we saw last year.
So we're looking at specifically major sports, but maybe major events. We're not looking
Major
at a broader
local?
scope at our days or days.
At our,
At our what? What did you
In
say?
general,
Oh.
we're not looking at our, one of our greatest selling points in our district is that, you have 10 days.
Oh,
We're
no.
not
No.
looking at that beyond this. It's just really tied to these major events that really
Right.
shut down the district.
and
That-
again.
That's my view.
We
yes.
noticed that provision because I think you have to with the notice letter
Yeah.
requirements under the P&A, if it implicates it, there could be a lot of solutions, I think.
Okay, so I think someone said, how do we ensure adequate staffing on,
Days
what
when
is the
major
phrase you wanna
local
say?
events fall or something.
Are they high absent days?
Huge.
For staff?
Okay, so then what, you want to call them that, or you
He's
want to
laughing.
tie them to the sports stuff?
How do we correct high absence dates?
I think you have to tie it more to just than something general, high absent dates, because, you might have a day where there's a lot of people
Okay,
going for something else.
so it is about the sports events. Well, anybody want to make a recommendation on how to finish that issue statement then?
So what I had typed that I heard people say was, how do we ensure there's adequate staffing when major events occur?
Or
Of
after
of
major
local
events.
importance, major events of local importance, or,
Oh, that's good, yeah.
do we have a lot of people gone on inauguration day or the,
No,
no? So I think it's more local.
So maybe instead of when major events occur, after major,
During or surrounding.
in
Around.
connection to major events?
Yeah, connected.
In conjunction with.
Ooh, that's smarter.
Oh my gosh, we are all getting to be.
The other time we see this as a real problem, although oftentimes it falls on spring break, is when we host the
Oh,
Final
NC.
Four or the Big 12.
Big 12 tournament,
Big
yeah.
Yeah, we
That
see it a
Thursday and
lot then
Friday,
as well.
yeah.
A lot of times that'll be either our spring break or oftentimes it's a work day. So that's another time when historically, it has been a problem.
And that would fall under the same,
Okay.
I think that'd be the same category.
Okay, so are folks satisfied with that issue statement?
Yes.
yeah.
Okay. Did the district have any more issue statements to bring forward?
I think the last two will be very quick because the issue statement we have labeled as 4-SMSD is our compensation issue statement, which probably marries up with the issue statement that you have about how we, sufficiently honor the work that our professional employees do. I mean, that's, I put some of our interests down there. They're the same that the board would have every year, but that's basically, reviewing all of the pay provisions of our negotiated agreement. And the final one I think is a discussion topic that marries up very well with a discussion topic that NEA already had, which is one that is also carried over from last year. Ours was a little more focused in terms of elementary and middle school employees' PLC time. But we would like to have a discussion about professional learning time and making sure that there is, adequate time and protected time for collaboration.
So is it PD and PLC time? Just to clarify,
I think our focus is mainly PLC time.
Yeah.
PLC time, okay.
Can we back up to the SMSD number 4 was sort of honoring work of professional employees. You sort of put it under compensation, kind of guessing a solution may need some compensation. But you thought really it's looking at the same thing that the NEA number 7's looking at? So we would sort of pin those together, or does anybody think it might be different?
I think it would be NEA 1.
Yeah,
It's
NEA
our
1.
compensation.
Oh, okay, because, all right, gotcha. 7 was
I think
about
7
sort
is
of rewarded.
focused on, is
Okay,
there
so-
a way we can reward for a difficult
Got you.
school year? Is that correct?
Okay.
Yeah.
Versus your one is focused
Their
on
number
compensation.
7 is to deal with the difficult year. Their number 1 is their total economic. So which were you saying that you think that your number 4 is?
Number
Number
one.
one.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and I'm sorry, now under number 5, I just needed to know where to categorize it on my written notes. Now under number 5, can you take a stab at putting that into an issue statement, guys?
What was Lindsay, can you please read the issue statement that you had for professional learning time? Wasn't there an issue statement?
Yeah.
How do we ours was about professional development.
Oh, development.
And it sounds like you guys, this is more about
I wonder if we
like
can steal some of your language there.
collaboration. So ours was, how do we guarantee quality PD that meets the needs of staff and students?
How do we guarantee quality PLC time that needs them?
Yep, exactly.
I
Yeah.
think too, we should say something about equitable PLC time
Yeah.
to our high schools. How do elementary and middle school staff have equitable PLC time to their high school peers?
So how do we ensure quality and equitable PLC time?
Within our district.
Can we
For
say
elementary and middle school staff,
Okay.
Can we say to
equitable
implement,
to their high school peers?
or to implement the philosophy of PLC rather than to PLC time.
I think that assumes we're not implementing it, where I think some of ours, I mean, even, we have schools that don't have the built-in time and they're doing amazing things with PLC, so I don't want to indicate that we're not implementing.
I just know a lot of schools have spent a lot of time, like, it's not a thing you do, it's a belief you have, and a way you operate.
Yeah.
So how do we guarantee quality and equitable PLC time for elementary and middle school staff as compared to their high school peers? Is that, or
That works.
Guys, is the equity issue part of a framing and focus? Or is the,
Well, high school
'Cause if you're gonna-
has the time now, and elementary and middle does not, so
right
that's
now.
the equitable piece.
We don't technically have it right now.
Yeah, we don't have it right now.
Because of COVID,
okay,
but.
so
Yeah,
whatever
yeah.
solution
You're
you come up
supposed
with, whatever solutions you come up with, you're going to want to make sure that there's equity. Have you already, without framing or focusing or identifying interest, is everyone okay with that?
Yes.
I think that since this came from a strategic planning subcommittee, they already have the
I
plan
gotcha.
in place. And since this is
Thank you,
discussion,
Linda.
not language.
Okay, let me be
Right,
quiet.
that's-
So
we kind of-
Lindsay captured Michelle's phrase. I think Michelle was on it and Lindsay was trying to take notes.
oh no, I think I got what Michelle said. How do we guarantee quality and equitable PLC time for elementary and middle school staff as compared to their high school colleagues?
Way better than peers.
Because we don't like some of them.
Okay. Question, Rachel, I noticed that, and Jill, I noticed the NEA did their NEA number 1. My notes say the titled compensation, which is economic, and it was wages, benefits, and other costs. But then separate from that NEA, you had and this is just a process question, you had NEA number 4 on health insurance. Did you want to have them separated out for a particular reason? There may be a good reason. And last year, did you guys put them all under one economic issue statement, or did we do it like that last year?
Well, there's always been a little bit of question about whether compensation automatically includes health insurance. So that's why we notice it every year as one of our 3.
Okay.
Might be good through this
Okay.
process, in the future to establish what we agree upon here, but that's why.
As benefits,
Kinda
right? Okay, so for the
compensation is kind
purposes of,
a 1A,
ahead.
and then health is kind of theoretically a 1B.
They have to be discussed as part of the same conversation.
Yeah.
Because they're both economic. But
Yeah, they would be done at the same time. We're just trying to be compliant with.
okay, and I don't want to reorder all of number NEAs, all 7, by pulling out the number 5, so, and making it a 1B, but I like that idea. But we just know that if these were paper copies of issue statements, like I would clip NEA 1, NEA 5, and SMSD 4 together.
yeah.
And that's your economic work, right?
Yeah.
Unless one of your solutions and anything else has a price tag to it, it'll if there's consensus, it'll shift to the economic pile. Can you guys tell me, was there any other overlap, or are there any
1 and 4, Lindsay.
that are highly related that you want to not necessarily deal with at the same time or call them duplicate, but at least keep your eye on?
No. Not Shawnee Mission 1 and 5, Shawnee Mission 1 and 4. She's
Yeah, what-
quoted it, not Shawnee Mission, NEA.
I said
Yeah, not
NEA,
5.
but-
No, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Healthcare 4, 1 and 4. Yeah, 1 and 4.
I apologize. NEA Shawnee Mission 1,
Yeah, that's okay, I
NEA
apologize.
Shawnee Mission 4.
And
And
Yeah,
SMSD
5 was professional
4.
development.
4, so 1, 4, 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, 144. That's right.
Maybe the numbers.
Okay,
are
so
worse.
like is like, do you want to deal professional development number 5 for NEA and Shawnee Mission PLC time, completely different issues, correct?
Yeah.
I don't know that a singular solution would work.
Yeah, I don't
They
want to say that you want
co-mingle, but they're
to
not-
like call them duplicates, but do you
Yeah.
want to at least work them within the same week? I mean, you know what I mean? Keep your eye on kind of, well, what you do with one impact the other on any of those. That was just one example. Is there anything you'd like to make sure that, hey, when we pick up, personal days, we want to be sure to pick up we want to be sure to, at the same time, keep our eye on where we're at with another topic. Are there any that are like, just like interrelated, I guess, but not duplicates?
I don't think so.
No.
I think the PLC and the PD are pretty different.
I would too,
Okay.
I'd agree.
Yeah, and I just did that as way of example. Work-life balance, we haven't unpacked it, and we don't have to. Is it related to anything that it might be impacted?
Hold on.
I think issue statement 3 and issue statement 5 for NEA could kind of go together depending on how the staff meeting is structured.
Mm-hmm. What, yeah, so not that you make them all one, but that you don't, deal with one, come up with solutions, and then a full 2 months later, pick up the other one, right? Just keep your eye on them together. So NEA 3 and 5, I based on what I've heard from you guys last time you talked about it, that sounds right. What do others think? Just make sure that we sort of, just keep our eyes on those two as related.
Okay.
Is NEA 6 related to anything?
Probably 2.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, 6 is more, we wrote as a discussion. Or we
Yeah.
marked as a discussion.
Okay, so you don't have any that are really duplicates, right? Where one sort of cancels out the other and we combine them. And you have some that, you'll keep your eye on the ones that are related, but there's not anything that just absolutely necessarily has to be worked on the same day, right?
Right.
So with that, you all were going to talk about what you are going to tackle. You're going to create your agenda for your next meeting, right? You're going to IBB through some issues. What might you want to pick up first?
Does the elementary and middle school PLC have a time element to it? Is that a priority for planning for next fall, or is that not critically time sensitive?
I think it's critical.
I think that's a good
I
one
like
to
that
start on.
conversation, yeah.
And then soon after that, I think it would be helpful to listen to or bring up the professional development for NEA-Shawnee mission to bring forward just the concerns of non-classroom teachers or non-core classroom teachers. A lot of subtleties there.
Start with those two.
We don't have to, I just threw out, me, I don't sit quietly behind.
It's a 1 and a 1.
Yeah.
It's a Shawnee mission, then a NEA.
I'm glad you brought up timing, because I don't think that when we ordered those, we were thinking,
Yeah.
the party that we represent, what are they really looking for in a ratifiable agreement, but timing, your solution doesn't work if the timing's off. So I'm glad you mentioned that, Linda.
I was on that part of that subcommittee,
Yep.
so.
So we're gonna.
Lindsay, for those two issues, Lindsay, were there anything in your notes of information needed that you guys want to get together before next meeting?
Can you guys repeat the issues again? Sorry, I was
It's
catching up.
number 5 for both of us. So it'd be the
Okay.
SMSD number 5 and then NEA-Shawnee mission number 5.
Okay. For ours, the only data for NEA 5 was we have that it came up a lot on our surveys, just through teacher anecdotal sharing their concerns, but I don't know that we have
Well, we do have data broken down we actually do have specific things from not only content areas, but whether you teach elementary, middle, and we do have that broken out, that we can provide that.
so we can bring that. I don't know that SMSD 5, we didn't discuss any data, I guess, if we're talking about the equity piece, looking at how much time each of those different different levels have.
Absolutely.
Did they make a suggestion?
Yeah.
Strategy 322 did, yeah.
Okay, and
Yeah.
then, so then that.
So bring that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think, just to make a suggestion, I think at some point we need to engage with, of course, we have elementary, we have high school, we need to bring in a middle school, maybe more than just Abby, to give their perspective as well on the practicality of whatever we start talking about. We don't need to be that close.
Yeah.
All right, you're saying we might need a middle school
Yeah,
And then we
person,
need to
like
break
as
it
a
into a
subject matter
subcommittee.
expert invitee?
I think so.
Is the team amenable to that? Like, and who, is that like asking a middle school administrator?
Well, we had people, I'm sure you could ask people from that actual subcommittee of that team. They would be the ones who brainstormed different solutions and researched it.
Yeah, if you guys are good with that, I mean, that committee's already been together.
And then all the middle school principals, I believe, have been together too.
They have,
They discussed.
they've started discussing, yeah.
Did we have a middle school principal that was on that subcommittee?
Dr. Case,
Yeah, Dr. Case, that's right.
Great.
Okay.
Stephanie, you're muted again.
There, right there.
So guys, Lindsay, do you have a note on who's going to be responsible for having the materials needed or the people contacted, the committee contacted before your next meeting? Who wants to take ownership on some of this stuff that you guys are saying would be good to have?
I don't have a specific person, but I
bet
can
you do,
voluntold
yeah.
Dr. Schumacher.
I see people looking at me.
What was that term?
Voluntold?
Man, I'm stealing
I
that.
like that.
You've never heard that
No.
before?
Thank you.
Well, then, you know,
We
for
have,
bringing
we have
that
our
to my
survey
life.
data that we can bring
organize.
that too.
Yeah.
What if?
And so,
Miss-
yep.
What if me and Miss Seek talk about strategy 322? I'll bring the report, and you and I can talk about it. I wonder if we hold off on bringing anyone else until we have
Maybe
an
have
initial
questions
discussion,
or
right?
whatever.
Figure out what the questions are.
Linda, you may
Yeah.
have said this, and I'm not sure I completely understood you, but in the staff survey that you did, is it safe to assume there's some commenting around lack of PLC time?
Lack of time, there's quite a bit of that.
So if there's data that you guys can share
Sure.
from that survey as it pertains to PLC, I think that would be beneficial as well.
Sure.
Yeah, I think Lindsay said she tried to compile it. Lindsay, is that on you?
I can.
When we broke it up to, in, you know, like, when we were looking at the data, so we could,
But I could just go through and
Okay.
pull out, like,
it's a lot of entries.
Yeah.
delete.
Okay.
Okay, guys, I'm going to sort of forecast for you what sometimes happens when a committee has worked an issue outside of IBB and they bring forth some solutions, which it sounds like you all may be having some solutions from this committee come forward, at the next meeting. It'll be really important that we unpack the issue and identify interests and then sort of start brainstorming solutions, and then maybe look at their solutions at the same time you brainstorm. But it's going to be important for you guys to identify your interests before you start considering a committee's solutions, because they will start to, because you all didn't come up with them out of your process, they're a committee's solutions. You're going to start to sort of judge them as you like them or you don't. And it's going to be important that we test their solutions against the interests the same way you would test your own solutions. That's one thing. So I just know that sometimes, I know a school district that had a committee, a specials committee, art, PE, and music committee. And the IBB group, took a list of recommendations from this committee. And it turned out to be more about what's your opinion about their solutions and their ideas versus their solution ideas being just sort of part of your brainstorming process, right? So I kind of want to say that. I also want to give a forewarning about the surveys. I know when I was a union rep for many, many years, sometimes I would have survey data because for me, it was saying, hey, I would say something, 970 nurses out of 1,500 say, they're short-staffed, right? Or, 72, nurses left in the past year, that your turnover, So sometimes I use survey data to almost sort of prove a position or a point. And it's okay if you share numbers, guys, but what I think this committee could benefit from surveys is if you have anecdotal information
That's
that
what
helps
it
you
is.
frame and focus the issue.
There's not
Right.
really, there's no way to capture hard numbers because it wasn't that kind of a survey. It was,
Fill in the blank.
It was like, what
Yeah.
do you need to be more successful professionally, or how can you be supported
Okay.
to be more successful as a professional?
Sounds good. And then also, then it sounds like you guys might be coming with some ideas for solutions too from surveys, right? Not only anecdotal information. So I'm just telling you that sometimes committees start to trip over themselves when it comes to like just seeing, do we, is there support on this committee for these solutions? I'm going to really require that you guys look at those solutions as your fifth step in the IBB process of these issues.
Can I pause
Right.
on that? Because I feel like the strategic planning committee has been meeting for a very, very long time and doing this. And like Linda, I know you were working on that as well. I guess my assumption was, how do we take what the committee has done and help support and implement it, not how do we...
So Lindsay, that's exactly where I was going. I wonder if this is an item that, I don't know that we necessarily need to IBB it. I think we have to honor the work of that committee. That committee has met multiple hours, and they do have a pretty solid recommendation, or a couple, actually, I think.
Yep.
And so I just think our point in putting it here was to have the discussion, because I know we had the discussion, or I believe, and Mike and Linda, you can speak more to this, when we moved to a late start, for example, at the high school level, we had a conversation around it at the table. And so our thinking was, we just want to make sure that the recommendations that they've made, that we can get behind both administratively and from Shawnee Mission NEA standpoint. So I don't know that we need to go through the whole interest. I feel like that's what the committee did, and I sure don't want to, I
Okay.
sure don't want to change the committee's recommendation personally, and I can't imagine any of us in this room want to do that, but I don't want to speak for everybody, but I feel like we need to honor the work of that committee and just get behind whatever language we need to support their recommendations.
I think we all.
Okay, there may be
understand.
consensus around that, right? There may be other times where we won't know till it gets there, that there may be division around a committee's recommendation. And that's when you're going to have to lean on the IBB process. So that's good to know, Dr. Hubbard, thank you. I assumed, like some districts, that committee recommendations come in and half the IBB team wants them and half the IBB team doesn't. And they've failed to IBB, so I can't get them back to what are you trying to solve, right? So if you guys think there's probably going to be consensus around this committee's work anyway, then it won't be a big deal. I was just kind of seeing red flag for me to facilitate you guys. So that's good news.
Would it be valuable in that discussion, something the committee, and I don't think this is something that we come up with, but what, I think it'd be good to have a public discussion of what that time looks like, because it's going to be very different than how elementary PLC's time has been, which is like 20 minutes a week. And so I think for the benefit that that's a good thing to get that out there and have that conversation. Not to change anything, but I mean, it is going to be,
Right.
it's not something you opt in or out of. And so, and also, we had input from administrators and teachers. And so, hearing a lot of what came from that, I think is important to have, just even get that on the record out there where everybody can hear it.
I agree, and I think the other, part of the puzzle is our parents and our students as well, because they're going to be impacted by whatever decision we make. And so while teachers, administrators, and everyone else within the district are potentially super excited about it, it's going to impact our families too. So to have that discussion in the public is important.
Okay, guys, you usually end your meeting saying, is there communication that needs to be done? I usually don't stay on for that. And I'm assuming Rachel and or Jill will send out that agenda. And Lindsay's got notes on who has what assignment. When are we all together again? We're together again in February, aren't we?
25th.
Does everyone have
Yeah.
an invitation?
I do not.
Thank you for letting me know, because I also left Dr. Hubbard off. So.
Can I clarify, did we have March 3rd as a day? I think I accepted that.
Nope.
I don't.
I think it's
March 3rd?
think it's March
Um,
11th and 25th, just
Okay,
like
good.
this
I had
month.
3, and I'm like going, that's conferences, so that won't work. So maybe I just. put in the
3/11
wrong
and
one.
3/25.
I have those, so that's good.
Okay, folks, I'm going to go ahead and drop off. And if you have communication you want to do, whoever's going to stick around for that, and I'll see you guys next time.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Can you drive yourself?